The 1980s was a special time with special players in St. Louis Cardinal history. It was the Whitey Ball era. 3 World Series appearances, 1982, 1985, and 1987. It was the era of great players. Ozzie Smith, Terry Pendleton, Willie McGee, Jack Clark, Vince Coleman, Andy Van Slyke, Bruce Sutter, Bob Forsch, and Tom Herr. One of the best second basemen in Cardinal history. Along with Ozzie, Tom helped anchor the middle of the infield for 9 seasons. He also played for Minnesota, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and the New York Mets. How good of a fielder was Tom Herr? Well, in his 13 seasons in the major leagues, he had 7,000 chances and made just 77 errors. Tom was not a home run hitter, but was productive without the long ball. In 1985, he had only 8 home runs but drove in 110, the only NL player to drive in more than 100 runs while hitting fewer than 10 homers. So he was not a long ball threat, but in 1987 against the Mets, Tom Herr did this at Busch Stadium on seat cushion night.
And the fastball hit the deep left field, way back. Johnson to the wall, and it is out of here. A grand slam home run. And the Cardinals win it as Tommy Herr has hit a grand slam home run to win the ballgame.
Fans celebrated the grand slam by showering the field with the giveaway. A night long remembered by Cardinal fans. Also long remembered is the play of Tom Herr in a Cardinal uniform. And tonight, we're proud to induct Tom Herr into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
Tom, I don't know if you knew that, but Jack Buck had a great line after you hit that grand slam off of Roscoe, who was a pretty good pitcher. Jack said, well, it looks like we're going to have another seat cushion night giveaway tomorrow. You know, but I've always considered you to be just, you know, a good, hard-nosed player. You weren't flashy, but, boy, you knew how to play the game the right way.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, back in my day, I got a kick out of the other guy saying how old school he was. I guess back in the old school, you know, they used to say it took a young hitter like 1,500 at-bats before he was ready for the big leagues. And, you know, when you think about minor league seasons, that's between 4 and 5 years of getting minor league experience. So, you know, I had a long time to learn down there, and with just some great instruction. George Kissel was instrumental in the Cardinal minor league system at that time, and you know, I had Hub Kittle. You remember old Hub? You know, some real hard-nosed, tough, just lifelong baseball men that you know, taught not only me, but you know, taught all the young guys coming up how to play.
You know, a lot of times people think, you know, that, oh, this guy didn't play in the big leagues, or he didn't do that. How's he going to teach me something? But, you know, they say the Hall of Famers were the worst teachers because they couldn't accept mediocrity. But,
well, you know, I can see how that's true. And, you know, I don't know if George ever played. You know, he doesn't look like he ever played. And I don't know about Hub Kittle. But, you know, there was I had some really good, like Hal Lanier was a manager 1 year in the minor leagues, and Hal had a nice big league career. He was a great baseball guy, came from a baseball family. So, you know, I think it's, you know, I don't think it's fair to say that great players can't also be great coaches, because I'm
sure
there's
Red,
a lot of
Red was great too.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, we loved him. But talking about managers, I had the pleasure of playing for Whitey in Kansas City. Is there anybody better?
Well, no. I mean, Whitey was great. He was the kind of guy I needed to manage me, because you know, Whitey, he just worried about what you did on the field. He didn't worry about the off the field stuff. And you know, I was kind of my own guy. I kind of kept to myself a lot of times, and I was quiet. And other clubs that I was with, you know, that sometimes that was misinterpreted as that I didn't care or something like that. But Whitey was, you know, he was a guy that really trusted his players. You know, there were a couple years we had, I think, 6 or 7 guys in the lineup that he gave the green light to, which means that, you know, we could try to steal a base anytime that we wanted to. So he, you know, he he doled out a lot of responsibility to the players, and I think because of that, his players really felt accountable to each other and to the team to do the right thing and play the game the right way.
I don't know if you heard this, but Whitey recently, and I'm sure he's said it many times, but he talked about the infield, Oberfeld, Ozzie, you at second, Hernandez at first, said it was the best defensive infield in the history of the game. How does that make you feel?
Well, that's great that somebody like Whitey would say that, but you know, I don't I don't think that way. You know, I mean, Ozzie, I think, was the greatest shortstop that ever played the game defensively, and Keith was certainly a great first baseman. You know, he was very athletic over there, and he talked a lot over there, which was fun for me, you know, because he was entertaining over there. And Obi often got overlooked, but he was solid. You know, he was very good. And then after Obi left, Terry Pendleton was a great third baseman here for the Cardinals as well. And when Keith left, of course, Jack took over. That was a very good infield too. I mean, I don't think Jack got a lot of credit because he was really never known as a first baseman or a defensive player. But Jack was a good athlete for a big man, and he picked up the position and really did well there.
1985, I think it's fair to say your best year. All-star, hit over 300, 8 home runs, but had 110 RBIs. The only player in the National League to ever do that, to have less than 10 home runs and hit over 100 RBIs. Molitor, I think, did it in the American League. But the art of hitting the ball, I mean, putting the ball in play. And we see this era of strikeouts and home runs. To me, it's boring.
Yeah, I mean, I get frustrated watching today's game. I think everybody's kind of drinking the analytical Kool-Aid these days, and it's when I came up, if you struck out, you were embarrassed. Nobody wanted to strike out. Now it's like if you can go 1 for 4 with a bomb and 3 strikeouts, you had a great day. So. Yeah, our team was built around, we played in a big ballpark. We had speed everywhere. So, we were, I think, as slump-proof as we could make our club, because not only could we prevent runs with, Vince and Willie in the outfield, and Andy Van Slyke, when he was there, could run, and George Hendrick could run. We covered a lot of ground on the outfield, and of course you already talked about the infield. So we could prevent runs with our speed, but also create runs offensively. And we needed to do that because we didn't hit a lot of home runs. However, I think if you would put that team in some of today's modern ballparks, we obviously would hit a lot more home runs because, I mean, back then. Not only was Busch Stadium big, but most of the National League stadiums were the big AstroTurf fields with big dimensions. So the home run numbers were down everywhere, really.
All right, I'm going to ask you about 2 of your teammates and contrast their personalities: Vince Coleman and Willie McGee.
Well, it's funny because They're both beloved players here in St. Louis, but they couldn't really be more different. In the clubhouse, which is where we interact the most. Vince was, he was kind of, his personality was the same way he played. He was flashy. He was boisterous, and Willie was just, you wouldn't even know Willie was there half the time. You had to talk to him to get him to say anything. And but Willie, had a great feel for the game, and those two really complemented each other. They were great friends, and most of those teams, I mean, we got along so well. That's what made it special. We had a group that really. It seemed like, baseball, there's a lot of individual statistics that go into the game, but that was a group that really valued winning above anything, and so we bought into hitting a ground ball to the right side to move a guy over, or taking a pitch to let another guy steal a base, and those things were important to us because we wanted to win. And but getting back to your question about Vince and Willie, yeah, it was funny to see how different they were, and yet they were both great players that really complemented each other.
It seemed like when I first came up that it was all about winning. You had the A's of the 72, 73, 74 that were just a dynasty, but all they would do is fight until they got to the game time, and then they'd play together as a team and win and then go fight again. Yeah. But it just seemed like those teams under Whitey really did have a family atmosphere, and you started hearing the term a good teammate.
Yeah, and Whitey, kind of, he kind of wanted that culture. When he first got here, he really cleaned house and made a lot of deals, some controversial, some not. I was one of the guys that fortunately, at the time I was coming up through the minor leagues, the three prized prospects of the Cardinals were Terry Kennedy, Leon Durham, and myself. And that's, we were about ready to step over the threshold into the big leagues when Whitey took over. And of course, he started his wheeling and dealing, and Durham went to Chicago, and Kennedy went to San Diego, and I was the only one that stayed here. And, I was probably, of the three prospects, I was probably a low man on the totem pole. But, we came up with, we won at every level in the minor leagues, and when we got to the big leagues and Whitey was there, he brought in guys that fit his style of play that he liked, and he was a master of manipulating a bullpen. I don't think there was ever anybody better at just having guys in the game and getting them out when they should get out. And I think there's only really one time in my whole stay here that I ever really second-guessed a move that Whitey made, and that was in that 85 World Series when, Ken Daly was pitching so great for us going down the stretch, and he was in that game, that famous Don Denkinger game, and I think Whitey was afraid of Hal McRae, so he took Kenny out and he brought Todd Worrell in, and that's when George Order then pinch hit for Hal McRae, and that led to Don Denkinger making the call, everything. I've always wondered what would happen if you just left Kenny in there to see what would happen against McRae, but that's just me.
And of course, Whitey had Hal McRae in Kansas City and knew what a great player he was, a great hitter, and guy that would rise to the occasion. But all right, tell us about what you're doing now.
Well, I'm a full-time grandpa now. I was. My two sons each have one child, and so we all live close to each other, so I see my grandkids every day. I'm still very active in, outdoor sports. I have a hunting camp up in north central Pennsylvania, just a little bit north of Williamsport, where they play the Little League World Series, and so I go up there quite a bit to hunt and fish and like to play golf, and so I'm doing what a retired guy should do, just enjoying myself.
Yeah, I know. I'm in trouble right now because I missed my granddaughter's high school graduation, and I went to her two older brothers that I like her better than them, So I'm in trouble. But I know you were in town a couple weeks ago. We talked a little bit. What does it feel like to come back to St. Louis?
Well, this is a second home for me. Our teams of the 80s we're treated like royalty whenever we come back, and I really appreciate that, as we all do. We went to 3 World Series in a 6-year span, and like every year we would come to spring training, and we felt like we had a chance to get there. And we were a really good playoff team. We just found ways to win games. Unfortunately, we only won one of those 3 World Series. I think, the '85 series was always kind of sticks in my craw because of the bad call. I think we would have won that one. And then in the '87 World Series was, that was just one of those things. The home team won every game in that series.
Well, you had the tarp run over Vince, and then you also Jack Clark was out with a bad.
We were beat up.
Our Pendleton could only hit from one side of the plate.
Yeah, we were beat up in the '87 series a little bit, but I give a lot of credit to Minnesota, and I ended up getting traded there the next year in '88, and they were good. I mean, they had some really good players.
I won't even talk about that because you were traded for a Hungarian, Bernansky.
Yeah.
But, Tommy, I got to tell you, it's a pleasure to see you. You're always going to be welcome in St. Louis, and now you're a member of the St. Louis Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.